All right, good morning. My name is Drew Lawrence. I'm here with Noelle Wiehe. She is a staff writer for Coffee or Die magazine. Noelle, thank you so much for being here. And first, I just want to. I know we're talking about this grant, but I want to get to know you a little bit better. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, who you are, and how you got into the newsroom?
Sure. So I always knew I wanted to do journalism since I was young. I went to the University of Cincinnati. I did two internships, and the only newsroom I could see that offered a paid internship was through U.S. Army Cadet Command. So um, my love of military writing started in college when I was about 20, 21. And I got out, obviously graduated college, took a couple small town newspaper jobs. Knew that I just used to write about somebody who was so passionate about their jobs, these military officers. So started paving that path. Um, Worked on Fort Benning for a little while until I realized that everybody above me was a veteran. So I joined the military myself in 2016. I was there 4 years on Fort Stewart, Georgia, and deployed once to Kuwait as a media analyst. And when I got back, I got out shortly after, and um, found found myself back in the um, civilian workforce, and was writing about everything from concerts downtown to new car washes opening, and just told myself like I used to interview Medal of Honor recipients. So I Googled how a military veteran would get into journalism and found a nonprofit that launches people to do just that. And so Military Veterans in Journalism got me a fellowship with Coffee or Die magazine by Black Rifle Coffee Company, and I was hooked. They were sending me to embed with the Coast Guard. I was riding around in helicopters. I was telling the stories of the soldiers who put their faces in the dirt and do those obstacle courses just for training and competition. And um, that's where I've been ever since. I'm a staff writer at Coffee or Die magazine, telling the stories of military service members, veterans, um, and first responders.
And in your piece, you wrote about the phrase "just do it." Can you tell us a little bit more about that phrase, how you came upon it, and what it means to you and your coverage?
Yeah, so I started writing this piece exploring the importance of military women in military coverage. And I found myself just coming across this phrase, just do it, um, as I was like, circling around the fact that the women in service are out there. They're doing amazing things. Um, they're serving in those roles. They're making those accomplishments. And so the fact that those people are out there, just I kept circling that phrase, just do it. Like the coverage is there. They're doing these things. We just need to find them. I mean, half the time they're coming to you. They know what they've done. They want to tell their story. So people, reporters in the media industry, personnel, they just need to do it. They need to do the coverage. They need to tell the stories of these women in every capacity. If they're doing amazing things, if they're the first to be doing these things, if they're, the hundredth to be doing this thing. I think that we just need to do the coverage, and it needs to become normal that a female is doing this. We need to see a name and not be taken aback when it's a female name, when it's Lieutenant Katie versus Lieutenant John, or um it just needs to be normal. We just need to do the coverage, and it needs to be told.
So, over the last decade, and I'd say the past couple of years, women in the service have seen criticism, whether it's been about integrating women into combat roles or just women in service in general. And a lot of this criticism has come from whether it be national media heads to politicians themselves. Um, can you explain a little bit about how your reporting can bring a little bit more of an objective uh, view of women in service and why it's important to be talking about these stories objectively?
Yeah, I think it just goes back to the point of relatability, and having a female service member cover the military or cover issues regarding women in the service. I think that it just creates this space of them being able to open up more because they know that, I've been through some of what they've been through, and that I'm going to be able to tell the right story, and not try to insert, my own opinion about, my own opinion without ever having been through what they've been through. I think that that's super important to have in coverage. So if you're having, if you're covering somebody um, if you're covering somebody who's been through this obstacle course for the first time, maybe they're the female who got the highest scores. You can know a little bit about what they went through just because you've served alongside them, and you've been through some of these strange obstacle courses and brutal conditions that they've gone through, and you're able to cover it, with a perspective that is more real than just the normal, subjective coverage. You're doing. I think that with most coverage, I think that if you're covering that, you need to experience it yourself. So um, I think you need to see those reporters who have either come from similar situations or been through the experience themselves. They need to, if somebody's covering Ranger School, maybe they need to spend a day, experiencing some of the suck that they have to go through. Sometimes the best coverage comes from somebody from the inside. And while not every woman soldier who is being told about can write the story themselves for these media outlets, I think that it's important that the media representatives do have that experience and are able to step outside themselves and, you know, write the story as it needs to be told.
And in your piece, you gave some specific examples of coverage you've done about women in service. Can you give us another example, something that you're proud of telling regarding women in service that could give us a good picture of what your coverage about this topic looks like?
Certainly. So I know that when I was on Fort Benning, that I covered, and this was even before I joined the military. But I was working on post. I was with them, every day, as integrated as I could be, and I covered the um, the two Ranger School graduates, the first female Ranger School graduates, and um, I was in that press room with they set up this whole press conference with a whole line of people. I think that they set up a couple people who did exceptionally well aside with along with the two female Ranger School graduates, and I think it was just really important because these women were, aside from being the first and having this spotlight on them, they were doing awesome. Um, they were excelling more than they thought that they would. They were just embracing everything that they had to do, and it was amazing to be able to tell the story because I think that then they knew it. They knew that they were paving the way. They knew that um, being told as the first to go through this course, they were creating this path for other people to begin to kind of follow in their footsteps. Like if a female wanted to do Ranger School, it wouldn't be such an anomaly because it's been done. And I think that as a media professional, it's very important to put that story out there because if they if they were to do the course without any coverage at all, somebody in the military joining who might have dreams of doing Ranger School. Maybe her grandfather went through, or her dad or her brother, and she has aspirations to do it. Sometimes taking that first step, being that first, can be a little intimidating. So if we're telling the story of somebody who's done it before her, it kind of sets a precedent of how she can ask. It wouldn't be so crazy for her to ask her commander if she can go because she's seen it done. She's seen the coverage that we gave, and she's confident that she can approach that because we've covered the topic and it's out there, and her stories are told. So she would be joining a legacy rather than being the first. And I think it's important to tell that.
You've hinted at a little bit in some of your answers, but I think it's important to address this question head on. And it's why. Why should people care about the coverage of women in uniform, and why is it important?
I think that um, as media professionals, we are covering things that are newsworthy, and to not cover women in uniform would be shielding our eyes. I think, they're out there, they're doing those amazing things, they're making those accomplishments, whether for the first time or, like I said, for the 100th time. I think that these women are, um, they're making their strides, and they're seeing things differently, just as I went through basic training and I can talk to women about, you know, the shoes that don't quite fit your feet, or the baggy uniforms that they fit you in that you don't know why. You can share those struggles, and if you're only watching um men make these accomplishments, then it's not relatable. You're watching something that you can't relate to, and that you can't, I don't know, like, be proud of, I guess, because everybody's kind of proud of their own lineage. So seeing women in uniform and making those accomplishments is important, and you're passing on legacies and pathways for future generations, and for generations right beside you, who are growing up beside you and need those path pavers. um, I think it's really important that it's highlighted and seen, because it's happening in the world. And like I said, we would be shielding our eyes if we were not making this coverage, because there are women out there doing amazing things. And as a woman veteran covering women veterans and service members, I believe that it's important that I tell these stories because of what I've been through, and because of the relatability, that I'm able to tell these stories from an insider's perspective. So it's easier for those people, for women in uniform, to be able to tell their story, because they know that I'm going to understand it. They know that I'm going to pass on those stories as they should be told. Um, I can kind of see what they've gone through. I can relate to it, which means I can put the reader, put my audience in a place where they can understand it better, because the story is being told by an insider, through an insider, and to an outsider, so that they can better understand inside that circle.
Noelle Wiehe, thank you so much for explaining that. Appreciate it.
Thank you.